Hello, everybody. I just wanted to pop in real quick and discuss a couple of things I was looking at. I don't think I'm going to do this for very much longer because there's so many good content creators out there that really take you through various things in detail. Like, I'm reading this book now about Zionism. It's called A Short History of Christian Zionism from the Reformation to the 21st century. And it's really interesting. And I just read that Creating Russophobia book, which is cool. It goes back to, Byzantium and the Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. And it's so interesting. And then this book just dovetails right into it because dispensationalism, millenarianism, uh, Lutherans, Calvinists, Catholics, various uh, Puritans, all of this stuff. Religion dovetails into political power and influence around the world and always has and has been kind of co-opted and used for that. But some of the people, the theologians and the passionate believers in various interpretations of scripture, are extremely passionate about their beliefs. And their beliefs are all very different. So it's fascinating. I can't go into it because I'd have to, go through the book and make notes and write an essay and give lectures. That's not my job. But I can just say that reading books like this back to back is really interesting because you can look at current events in a new light, and and it just makes things more fleshed out, more three dimensional, more detailed, more finer grained, and I get such a kick out of it. It's just fascinating. But this Christian Zionism, the way Christians have traditionally approached the idea of Jewish homeland and the way that various Jewish groups in the diaspora, both conservative religious Jews, Ashkenazi, different kinds of German Jews, British Jews, just people from around the world who identify as Jewish either ethnically or culturally or religiously or all of the above, have different ideas about how to express their faith, how to live in their culture. For example, some people thought that having a homeland in Africa or in Palestine was a re-ghettoization of Jews. It would deprive German Jews and British Jews and Russian Jews and so on of their identity within their communities. And also interpretation of religion is so interesting because people have a different idea, eschatology about end times and what that means, where are you supposed to go? Is it a spiritual thing? Is circumcision a spiritual thing, or is it really just the surgery of cutting a part of the body and so on and so forth? People have very different attitudes about it and ideas, and they're very detailed, logical, reasonable, well thought out lines of belief, and they become politicized. Politicians use these ideas to further their goals. Nations use them in geopolitics and so on. And, it's so deep. I mean, if you're just like a four horseman atheist and you have, like, well, why would anyone believe in this? Extraordinary claims need extraordinary evidence and so on. You're really missing out on such a huge element of history and what motivates and drives people and the needs of people to believe something, to believe what they're taught, what they're given in their given circumstances. to have faith and trust in their communities, that they're learning the truth, that they understand things. And in particular, people who are theologically inclined, philosophically inclined, whatever, tend to want to believe that they understand the mind of God, right? I know how God thinks. It was revealed to me, or I figured it out through numerology and different forms of text analysis and hermeneutics and whatever. I'm not going to use all these academic terms because I'm not an academic, but these books are very well researched and introduce you to a vocabulary and a historical point of view that I find extremely valuable. So the whole Russophobia thing, China-phobia thing, the idea that Russia's the enemy. Before it was the Ottoman Empire that was, the host of the Antichrist and the final battle. And after the Ottoman Empire disappeared, and of course Britain was so intimately involved in what happened in the Middle East after World War I, and the disappearance of the Ottoman Empire, the new threat was Russia. But it didn't happen overnight. There were lots of agreements made and broken, alliances made and broken, all the way through World War I and in between World War I and World War II. And then after, the drill, it's kind of like cycle, rinse, repeat. Or cycle, rinse, rhyme, if history rhymes. But somehow human beings need this stuff, and powerful, influential people will co-opt and use the emotional power and persuasive ability of religious belief and faith to get on with achieving what they want to achieve for themselves and their real constituents, right? So I think these days people are starting to realize that politicians don't really work for the plebs and proles. They work for powerful interests, and powerful people have the power to convince politicians to do their bidding, and it as often happens. So sometimes I post something at Globe Hackers Facebook, and I'll get a comment, and they just don't like the person who wrote the article or the person in the video. Scott Ritter is an extremely controversial guy, and I would look him up if I were you, if you hate him or whatever. The mainstream doesn't like him, like they don't like Chris Hedges. I'm not equating the two. Or Douglas McGregor, people like that. There's so many who have a slightly anti-establishment, anti-mainstream view of things, look at things through a different lens, a different perspective. And so it rubs people the wrong way, especially people who are true believers in the mainstream, the kind of, binaries of, Labor, Tories, and Labor, or Republicans, Democrats, or whatever. I don't think most people understand what socialism is, or what it tries to achieve, or what communism is and what it tries to achieve. I don't think people understand any of it, really. But there are many mechanisms and tools we have, or especially powerful people have, to persuade you and inspire you through emotional means to think and believe certain things. So these people, throw a wrench into the works and tend to look at things from a different point of view. And I find that valuable personally, because we can get mainstream view 24/7, mainstream views 24/7, and they don't challenge us very much. And they really aren't the full picture. So whether you like Scott Ritter or not, and he was a weapons inspector, look him up. He worked for the United Nations. Before that, he was in the military. My commentator told me that the guy who commented on the video that I posted said that Scott Ritter is a shill for the Russians and that he resigned from the military. He didn't resign from the military. He resigned from weapons inspector back in '98. It's a different thing. And then he was involved in other things leading up to the war, the war after 9/11. And so, he butted heads and it was controversial. But some of the things that he observed and wrote about in his book, I forgot what it was called. Oh, yeah. It's called Endgame Solving the Iraq Problem, have kind of borne out certain truths in his analysis. The commentator also says that he's just a professional pundit and not a analyst. But you can be a pundit and an analyst, or you can advocate your point of view on various alternative media platforms and still be an analyst, using your analytical brain and your experience as a Marine, as an intelligence officer, as somebody who worked with the CIA and MI6, and as a weapons inspector for a long time, and on and on and on, with, enough. He was in the military for 20 years, so he has enough experience to, I think it's 20 years. If I say something incorrect, don't worry about it. Just look him up. Don't hold me to it. I'm just talking. But, I find these alternative perspectives very important. We're going to, power is going to do what it's going to do. Capital is going to do what it's going to do. And people who wield power and capital are going to do what they're going to do. And for us, it's meaningless. Democracy doesn't really mean anything, really. It's just a way of assuaging or pacifying us. I still love Simone Weil's perspective on political parties. But anyhow, and he doesn't like Danny Haiphong, I guess, because he's not afraid of Russians and he's not afraid of Chinese people. So he's a shill, or a commie or something. I mean, we hated the Soviet Union because it was communist. Now we're back to hating Russia just because it's Russian. And the history of this hate and fear is fascinating. And I would read up on it because it's really interesting. And I've commented for a long time about my fascination with the Great Game, keeping Russia out of India and what happened in Afghanistan and so on. The British Empire, I think you can call American empire today. But of course, it's a different kind of empire than the British Empire or Commonwealth after that, obviously. But still, it's a hegemonic power. The US dollar is extremely important to the global economy, and on and on. And other nations are rising up and becoming competitive, and America doesn't like competition. So it's going to do everything it can to curtail it or destroy the competition. It's a zero-sum game, We control Taiwan, or they do, and it doesn't matter what agreements we made. Someone will come on TV, some Japanese politician or analyst, pundit, and he'll say, we never made any agreements with the Chinese Communist Party that Taiwan was part of China. And this coming from a Japanese person whose country literally invaded and took over Taiwan for a period, and Korea, and invaded Manchuria, and fought a war with China, and so on and so forth. So it's odd. People and they'll say that, and somebody will watch it on TV, and they'll immediately believe it. Taiwan never was part of China, or nobody agreed to that. If you look at the complex developments and motivations behind what led to the establishment of the State of Israel, it's fascinating. And it has a huge Zionist component to it. But don't think you understand Zionism, because it's very complex. This book is fascinating. The different flavors of Zionism, different approaches and attitudes towards it, and beliefs about it are amazing. And it's just like the dispensationalists and the Christian evangelists in the United States. You can vilify them or whatever, or disagree with them, but they're powerful. They're extremely, they're true believers, and they've arrived at their beliefs through very arduous analysis of scripture and philosophical reflection and all kinds of other political motivations and personal motivations. And the people who believe in the leaders who put forth the pamphlets and the books and preach and evangelize and whatever, they're passionate believers in these people. And once they're a true believer, they're really not going to listen to anything else, because their immortal soul is involved with it. Salvation at the end of time, at the end of history, the true end of history, not the Fukuyama one. And then if you're a reactionary, like some people, you'll see things obviously differently. Like our ex-friend Curtis Yarvin says that anti-colonialism is just another colonialism, somehow bending that around. And that the problem in Gaza right now is the difference between a cause and welfare. So for the better welfare, they would do what people did in Nagorno-Karabakh and just leave Gaza and say, we can't win, so we're going to run away and live. But that goes against a lot of history and a lot of passion, a lot of belief on the other side that they don't want to leave. So then you get into this realpolitik, art of war type thing where you're saying, well, they're just going to kill them anyway. So if that's what you want, that's what you get. And many people, even a lot of Jewish people throughout the decades, the last century, from the 19th century till now, have thought that it would be a very bad idea to have a Jewish state. In other words, an ethno-state in Palestine. I mean, there are a lot of people with that point of view. So I think if they exist and they've arrived at their point of view rationally and carefully, and they believe in it passionately, then maybe we should listen to them and learn what we can from their perspective and from their knowledge and understanding and from their analysis, even if they're pundits. And who gets paid more as a pundit? Somebody on Rumble who has subscribers, or somebody on CNN who's in the revolving door between government, the private sector, and the media? I mean, who really comes out rich at the end of the day? So I think if Scott Ritter has a passionate perspective on things, it's probably fairly well informed, may not be completely accurate and true and right, but it's probably, there's a lot of things there that we can learn from, and probably a lot of things in his analysis that is accurate or, correct, maybe. And just ignoring it because we don't like him. Again, the guy brought up that he was convicted in a sex crime, and it's true. He got caught up in a sting, Scott Ritter, and he was talking to an undercover police person, someone from the law enforcement, and he was having a sexy chat with someone that was posing as a 15-year-old. So bad idea, bad move, not good, disgraceful, but it really doesn't have much to do with his professional life. I mean, what is all this stuff with, Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton? And I mean, are there not criminals in Congress? Have there not always been corrupt people and criminals? And of course, we're constantly finding out that people in churches abuse their power all the time. People with power in any context abuse power. You have Ashley Madison, that whole thing. Why were there so many people wanted to sign up to commit adultery? What's that all about? And you think people don't, what is it, sexting? Or, post dick pics like that guy, who was the guy that was Weiner, Anthony Weiner? And he got busted and drummed out. So I'm not making excuses for him, but anyway, he wasn't very popular in 2009, especially not with the government and the mainstream. And he was pretty much hounded, and he was stung, and he got busted. He got caught breaking the law, and he served what was it? He was in prison from 2011 and paroled in 2014. So, he did some time, man. He did the crime and he did some time. But that doesn't mean that his life is over, that he can't have an opinion, an informed opinion about things that are going on today. He paid his debt to society. Also, he commented that, sorry, I keep doing that. I've got a nose, Sarah, damn it. So, why didn't I do something in the bathroom in front of the mirror before I started videoing myself? So, yeah, so he's got a Russian wife, the guy said. You could hear the tone, he's married to a Russian. And he's been to Russia, and so on and so forth. Well, I have friends who have married Chinese people from mainland China. I had a Japanese wife. I have a Chinese wife. Come on. What's wrong with that? It's not misogynation anymore to marry somebody that's not of your kind or whatever. And if he likes Russia, who cares? I visited the Soviet Union, I think it was in 76 or maybe 77, with my parents and my cousins. And I visited Russia again in the 2000s. And it was quite different, obviously, between Soviet Russia and the one that I saw. I was in Moscow in the 2000s. I was in Vladivostok in the 90s. Anyway, you go to a place over the decades and you'll see how it changes. I live in Portugal now. I used to live in Japan and Hong Kong and Shanghai and whatever. And over the years, places change. They get better in some ways and, in my opinion, worse, maybe because I'm nostalgic, but whatever. So what? His wife's Russian. Big deal. He's not afraid of Russia. So what? The idea that you're fighting a Marvel comic caricature of a supervillain in the body of Putin, Putler, and that the only problem with Israel right now, if you don't like what they're doing to Gaza and the West Bank, is Netanyahu. You're just wrong. It runs deeper than that. Lots and lots of people in Russia are willing to sign up and die for the cause. Hold on. I'm going to pause this, put a battery in.